On February 25, 2000, Victoria Climbie, an 8-year-old who was born in Ivory Coast but lived for some years in London with his aunt Marie Therese Cow, died in the Central Hospital of St Mary of the capital. He had arrived a day earlier at the center of semi-conscious and hypothermia, multiple organ failure and malnutrition health. In the autopsy after his death, doctors found 128 injuries in all parts of your body. The child had been burned with cigarettes, tied for periods of longer than 24 hours, deprived of food and water, and savagely beaten with bicycle chains, hammers and wires. The pathologist in charge of the case said it was the worst case of deliberate physical abuse against a child he had seen. Victoria died the same day that the Universal Church of the Kingdom of God, located North London, planned to hold a service to cast the demon out of her and exorcise evil spirits. In his diary, the pair of Marie Therese, Ghana Carl Manning described Victoria as Satan and said that no matter how hard you hit him, she was not crying or showing signs of being hurt, because he was possessed by evil spirits. On 12 January 2001, the two adults were convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. The judge said, "What endured was truly unimaginable, Victoria, a living hell that lasted for months, until his gruesome death. That was one of the most publicized cases of harm to a child by activities of witchcraft and exorcism registered in the United Kingdom. Abuse, realizing the enormous failures not only of the police, which was not able to intervene in the case despite being aware of abuses to the little girl, but also of social services and child protection agencies." In fact, Sunday 11 Scotland Yard, in charge of security in London, confirmed that it is giving a dangerous increase in the number of child abuse in the British capital involving savage acts of witchcraft, necromancy or exorcism. The Metropolitan Police had a specialist in the subject unit consisting of detectives and forensic experts investigated at least 50 cases during 2014, more than double than the previous year. The police unit called Project Purple received complaints about 60 incidents since the beginning of the year until October, indicating that the trend is dangerously increasing. Scotland Yard also indicated that 46 cases of child abuse linked to witchcraft were reported in 2014. In 2013 were 21 and in 2012, 10. Experts believe that many cases of abuse involving witchcraft and exorcism are not reported or reported, and left without being punished by the law. Savagely Christy Bamu in 2010, a young man of 15, was savagely beaten by her sister Magali Bamu, and her partner, Ari Baikabu. Bamu had been accused by Baikabu of being possessed by evil spirits and the devil himself, and then beaten with hammers, stones and broken glass, before being drowned in the bathtub of her home on 25 December of that year during torture sessions to exorcise. Christie also had been taken to a neo-Pentecostal church in London that will take out the demon from the body. When the teenager was found by emergency services Londoners, his head, face, back and arms were covered with deep cuts made with sharp objects, and missing some teeth. The coroner in charge of the case amounted to 101 wounds in the body of Christie, which he said by the drowning as leading causes of death. Magali Bamu and Uri Baikabu, both originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo, were sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of the young man, whose face emblem of suffering endured by child victims of physical abuse cases linked to witchcraft and exorcism turned. During the trial, jurors heard that Christie suffered such physical pain after 3 days of attacks by Baikabu and Bamu, who used knives, sticks, metal bars, a hammer and a chisel, which prayed desperately die before drowning in the bathtub. For the authorities, cause aggression suffered by the victim were a prolonged attack of savagery and brutality inconceivable. Child abuse in any form, including based on the belief in witchcraft or spirit possession, is a heinous crime, which is condemned by people of all cultures, communities and faith, and it is never acceptable in any circumstances, they said. In 2001, agents of the London Police discovered the torso of a black boy 4 years floating in the River Thames, and after giving the DNA studies, concluded that the child, whom the researchers called Adam. He had been the victim of a ritual sacrifice, with subsequent dismemberment. It also found that Little had been forced to eat stones, bones and pieces of gold before dying. At that time, Londoners detectives warned about the disappearance of 300 children of African origin, mainly in the London area. Another notorious case was that of witchcraft. An 8-year-old from Angola, abused and tortured in London by the woman who cared for her, Sita Kasanga, 35. In 2001 a court sentenced to life imprisonment Kasanga, after considering guilty of physical abuse, serious injury and torture practices to small women who considered it a witch. The Angolan girl had reached the British capital after the death of his parents, accompanied by an aunt he told his mother when he sought asylum. Kasanga and her brother Sebastian Pinto attended the aunt of the orphan in the torture sessions. The possessed girl. Authorities found the dead girl almost cold and hunger in the stairwell of a building in Hackney, east of the capital. The minor suffered 4 months cuts, bruises and belted with tall, slender heels of women's shoes. The cuts were made perverse harmony. Coroners had determined that the identically grouped in 2s and 3s cuts in the abdomen. According to the girl, once, half naked, his executioners put into the bag of dirty clothes, and threatened to throw her into the river. Kasanga was an active member of the Church of Spiritual Combat Dalston, East London. It is estimated that in the British capital there are at least 300 churches of this type, supported by communities from West African countries, who believe in certain forms of exorcism as punishment for demonized demon child. The police group Violetta Project's main objective is to combat physical abuse linked to religious rituals, which are in most cases against minors. Terry Sharp, detective in charge of the investigation, said the number of incidents still small in number, although he warned that the increases are significant. Sharp detailed the case of a child of 9 years was called demon child and expelled from his home by their parents. The boy was found weeks later by social workers, barefoot and hungry, walking alone down the street. Another case involved a mother, who believed her son was the devil, possessed by evil spirits, and as a result tried to bite him and hurt him wildly. The detective in charge of the investigation said that in some cases physical abuse and beatings are reported, but said that killings were also reported. Sharp said that some minor, whose parents believe are demonized or invaded by evil spirits, receiving severe beatings or hot peppers were rubbed in the eyes of wild ritual of exorcism. In that sense, Debbie Rio, founder of the African charity group United Against Child Abuse, he said there were many times in various African churches in the UK financial motivations behind the cases. The pastor says there's a demon in the congregation, look down from the pulpit to parishioners and draws a child, it means a public humiliation for the family in question, said the expert. The next step is the exorcism, which is not free. It is a deception to make money, he added. Ario asked not see the problem as one in African communities, and said that there are victims of other faiths and ethnic groups, including Latin America, especially in countries where beliefs of witchcraft and exorcism are maintained. The expert also expressed concern about the lack of knowledge on the part of professionals, who are in charge of caring for and protecting children in the UK. Last July we organized seminars and training courses for social workers, teachers and lawyers. Most of them did not know what was witchcraft or acts of exorcism, let alone how to deal with such incidents, he said. Data obtained by Radio 5 BBC concluded that half the police forces in Britain do not record such abuses, adding that only 2 security forces in England, Manchester and Northamptonshire reported incidents of this nature in the past 3 years. In 2014, the Committee on the Rights of the Child United Nations CDN confirmed that hundreds of children are kidnapped in Africa and illegally transferred to the UK to participate in witchcraft rituals. It said international agency urged the British government to do more to stop the brutal form human trafficking. We are very concerned about reports that hundreds of children were kidnapped from their families in Africa and trafficked to the UK, especially London, to be forced to participate in religious rituals, said Kirsten Sandberg, head of the CRC and former judge of the Supreme Court of Norway. After complaints, a spokeswoman for the government in London issued a statement that warned, "Nothing is more important than the welfare of children. No belief system can justify child abuse as unacceptable in any form. And those responsible for abusing children associated with ritual or religious beliefs will be tried under the same law that condemns people who abuse or kill children by other reasons, he said.